give two answers. So one, if you have not Googled Thomas Crottinger's like gay monologue from the Map Chats, I suggest Googling it. It's on the internet now. It was awesome. And like Survivor is so gay, and that's one of the things that I love about the community. And so I want you to hear that. But like, let's make this about me. Uh, uh, I, you know, I went out and played. I got the call back from Survivor a week after my mom went into the hospital. I
Right.
My mom passed away 7 weeks before we went out and played.
Oh man.
There was I could have been on 47. I could like there was a lot of sort of churn leading up to the moment that I got out there. I found out I got cast a week before my mom passed away. And so I just like that is part of the story of me going out there. I will never not be just like extremely grateful for the hope and excitement and the ways in which it like brought my family together and made them root for something in the face of, something really terrible going on. And it's a gift to give your family something to be excited about.
That was a crazy tribal council. What was it like watching it all back? I mean, you were there live. You experienced way more than we saw. How was it to experience what happened there?
I think that's what's the hardest part, John, is
Yeah.
just it went on for so long, and apparently this was like the longest one in the history of the show.
Wow.
We all kind of knew we were in for a long night when we saw like, tribal council get cut with a commercial break. That's kind of like, that's really rare to see. But there's a lot of stuff that was said, some more important than other conversations. And it's just tough because, I do not envy the jobs of any of the editors or the producers. Like they do an awesome job telling the overarching narrative of the story and just kind of figuring out way to proceed forward with. I'm just upset with it. Looks like it can be perceived that I didn't really fight for myself, when in actuality, those first three votes after Mary's Strong in the Dark hits was all Cedric. And I was confident in my relationship with Cedric. I reassured Cedric at Tribal Council. That's why he stuck with me for those three votes. He wrote down Say's name not once, but twice, and then also was still willing to get rid of Say after finding out that I had lost my vote and didn't reveal that.
There's a narrative about like Loggy didn't like Star, and I just don't,
Right.
that's just like not true.
Right.
Um, I think that obviously Star went after the idol, which creates tension, but at the end of the day, like we never like I like love Loggy. Like I feel so lucky that it was the six of us.
Right.
And I wish there was like more moments of that being shown. I feel like I feel like the California girls like got a lot of airtime, and that's so fucking cool. Um, but like I do think that there's an element to how fucking smart Bianca is and how
Right.
great she is. And I feel like because I was in between like me and her and then the girls, that like you don't see as much of her, but she like had information that she would bring me. Like she was
Oh.
so active and just brilliant and wonderful out there. And then we did on the bonfire was 4th of July.
Ah, very
And
cool.
so that's why we made the bonfire. So I wish that was shown. And then we like sang America the Beautiful and the
Uh,
Star Spangled Banner, like as a tribe, and it was cute.
I spoke to Thomas last week, and he had this to say about you. I
Oh,
I do think that there's an element of how effing smart Bianchi is and how great she is. You don't see much of her, but she had information that she would bring me. She was so active and just brilliant and wonderful out there. What do you think about those comments? And what is he talking about initially that stuff, things that we didn't see?
he is. First of all, what do I think about those comments? I literally, my dad was like, "We love Thomas. Welcome him into our family." My mom's like, "I'm making him chicken cutlets for him for the rest of his life." Like,
He's
I,
invited to sausage making and wine making,
yeah,
right?
I adore that man. I appreciate him saying that because I do feel like because Loggy wasn't going to tribal, there was a lot of my strategic gameplay not shown.
Right.
And one really good example of that is when we see Star telling Thomas and I that she had the beware advantage. That
Right.
is actually after Star told me alone that she had the beware advantage because I had been working her and really trying to get her on my side. So she tells me, I run and tell Thomas, and I'm like, yo, she has the beware advantage. You have to convince her to tell you right now. And then when that scene happens, it's me pretending not to know so I don't lose Star's trust. So that's just one example of like, oh, you don't see the full thing and a lot of the strategy that's taking place because we weren't going to tribal.
I do wish that they would have showed a little bit more of I mean, obviously everyone wants a little bit more camera time, but there was not a lot of getting to know me, hence why there's been a lot of kind of like, oh, she's not trustworthy, she's fake, she's this, she's that. I'm like, you don't see the clips of me listening to David talk about, his girlfriend who just broke up with him and he's living in a trailer and me really trying to like give advice and be understanding. Him and I had that conversation long before he told anybody else. We don't see the clip of Star coming to me and revealing, hey, like, I have the idol and I trust you. I feel like you're really cool. And then opening up to me about her home life. And, we don't see all of that. And so I wish some of that would have been aired because I can laugh along with them. I have a great sense of humor. I'm like, yeah, I look like a big ding dong out here. Nobody likes me or like wants to work with me. But I'm like, it wasn't quite that extreme. I mean, mostly I'm just out here showing you my humble traits, which I'd love to know yours if you have one.
Now,
first, let me start off with like, I feel like y'all got enough of me. I think Sabias did a great job of showing all facets of Say, but I also wish you guys would have seen how intentional I was with my conversations. And I think Shaheen hinted at it, like, not even hinted at it. He literally did a great job of describing me in the past episode, saying that she doesn't do niceties. She's not fake. Like, if you tell me you don't like me to my face, I can respect that. I respect and I receive it. What I don't respect is people who are like, oh my God, I really like you. And then saying another thing like that. I can't work with that. But you telling me where we're at, I can build on. So that is one thing. If people saw the intentional conversations that I had with Cedric that made him like me, I swear I'm not a terrible person. But that's the one thing.
Well, you see Bula going through. You see us at the bottom. You don't see us having those really deep belly laughs, talking and having a great time. You also don't see a lot of the one-on-one conversations I had that then allowed people to come tell me information they wouldn't tell anyone else. Mm-hmm. That actually happened. You also see the bumpy part, as I mentioned earlier, of saying my relationship, but you don't see the strategic talk. You don't see the balanced view, she calling me names, whatever, and we calling each other back out. You don't see that, which I think, even when Star had the moment with me, I think she was the first person who actually saw me. Meaning there was so much thought about like, oh, I'm just voting people off. I'm rude. I'm a horrible game player. I'm horrible at the challenges. Even online, she was the first person who actually, I feel like, saw me for what I was trying to do in the game.
No, I read on, and I don't read social media. I don't look at, somebody said I had a purple edit, and I was like, Google purple edit. I'm like, what's purple edit? And it was like, you are non-existent. I'm like, damn. I totally got the purple edit, which is fine. I don't care.
Right.
No, they showed what they showed. Obviously, if people don't realize that so much more happened, like crazy, bonds, like me and Camilla, like I was Camilla's biggest cheerleader. Like I love Camilla. I think she is an awesome person and it's so understated and but they don't show that her and I even talk, so
what do you wish else stuff that they would have shown, especially because again, I assume you weren't just standing there like a palm tree, you were working the game. What are some of the things that you wish they would have shown as far as that's concerned?
Well, yeah, they don't show the converse, like me crying to David, like me begging to David. I thought that would have been great. I can't believe they didn't show that. The four of us still, conniving a little. They don't really show this even, but David, I don't know. It's so crazy how many different moves there are. It's insane how many different directions. I wish they show Joe and Eva running the game because that's what's going on right now. Like literally, I look at it now and Joe seems like he's the godfather and everybody's got to come to Joe and he says, let me think about what's going on. I'm like, what?
Star and I had a really good relationship too. I love Star. And I had a good relationship, I think, with pretty much everybody. I really did. Like I connected with people on a level of which I did not expect, but I was just being myself out there. And I think that really is what made people sort of gravitate towards me, because you're playing a game in which most people aren't. They aren't being sincere. They aren't being themselves. And the ones that aren't, sort of out themselves, like Charity, for example. But there was one moment in the reward with Eva and Joe and Mary where I told them exactly what was going to happen. And this is why I became a little frustrated, as I said, look, we're going to switch the vote to Camilla. I guarantee you something's going on here. They're going to not like it. They're going to visibly not like it when you first tell them, but they're going to be like, fine, right? They're going to go along with it because they don't want to push too hard.
Right.
And then we're going to make the vote Camilla. And then at the very end, before tribal council, Shaheen or Kyle or both is going to come to you and say, hey, this is bullshit. Why is it Camilla? It should be Chrissy. And you need to stand your ground. And you need to promise me that you will. And he did. He did. Joe and Eva are like, yes, I understand. If that moment happens, I will not flip the vote back to Chrissy. And so what happens? My prediction 100% came true. They fell right into my trap. I gave Camilla and Shaheen and Joe on a silver platter to Eva and Joe. They didn't take it. And so to me, I felt absolutely betrayed. Of course, I'm going to be frustrated.
Right.
Yes. So a lot of the time, people are watching me talking. I'm only really trying to make moves with Original Loggy. I'm only really talking with Original Loggy. And the reason why it was like that was because although I was on the bottom, once we see Thomas leave, once we see Bianca leave, it's kind of like we're all we have left with Original Loggy, because we get to the merge and Siva goes back to Siva.
Right.
Like they're still Siva strong, or they're trying to be. The majority was Siva. And now I'm like, hey man, we only 4 Loggy. There's 6 of these Sivas. Let's do something here. From day one, Joe said he wanted to work with me. That wasn't shown. I wish it was, because then it would make it seem like I'm just not a thirsty player. Like, hey Joe, I got you a coconut. Do you want it? No, it wasn't like that. We were sharing coconuts together, and they just didn't show it. So I just look like I'm that little sister trying to follow behind. And it's like, no, we're actually friends. Guys, you don't know this. But it's just, in the game, he wanted to work with me. He told me if he found an idol or anything, he would tell me. He said, if you find an idol, I'll tell you. And he shook my hand and he said, I want to work with you. And I said, all right, man, I got you. If I hear your name, I'll say it. So a lot of times I'm talking to him and he's like, I appreciate you, girl. Thank you, girl. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm thinking we locked in. And then I watch tonight, and we are not locked in.
Wait, we haven't already talked about David and Eva and the Strong Alliance, have we?
Probably not, no.
We haven't. Okay. So, I want people to know that David, Eva, and I, from the day one of New Loggy, decided that we would work together. David was not bringing me into anything. It was mutually decided upon that we would all work together.
Right.
I really trusted David and Eva, and I worked with them because they were the first people since day 5, Kevin, who had wanted to work with me, who I felt like I could trust. And I don't think people really know the desperation that I felt. I have a lot of grace for myself. Desperation is not cute at all, but also I don't know who could have survived a tribe like Vula and not felt desperate, right? Like, if you're selling, I'm buying. I'm not this crazy strategic mastermind. Like, I am someone who has really, really gone through a lot in the game and is really just like being a human in that moment and like excited that people are going to work with her. Also, I was pretty responsible for the Cedric vote. I don't know why they wouldn't have shown that, why they didn't show that, because that revenge arc would have been sick. But when we all got together, they were like, what do we do? And I'm like, guys, don't worry. We don't need to lie. Just because I'm on Vula doesn't mean I'm tight with Cedric. In fact, I want him out. He's a liability. I don't trust him. I want to work with you guys. Let me prove it to you. They were like, all right, word. Well, he trusts you, so you got to be the one to make him feel safe. And I did, which is why he didn't play a shot in the dark.
They obviously they have to tell the story of 18 people. So with respect to all of that, I was responsible for a little bit more than I think really the fans saw. And then also the fans saw things that they don't give me credit for. So for example, the David vote, I got very little credit on the interwebs, which doesn't matter to me, but like very little credit for the fact that I set that up for 3-4 days. In a moment where, and this is what's missing from the conversation, I already had a ton of heat on me. Remember, I caught the vote in the Cedric vote, And Chrissy voted for me as well and was bandying my name around. So in a moment where I already had a bunch of heat on me, I was still responsible for the next move. And on top of that, I was responsible for the next move too. That when the vote was Mary, I'm the one who switched to Star with that conversation that I had with Joe, where I wasn't pushing super hard. I was inceptioning it out of him. Okay, but why should we do that? And asking all the right Socratic style questions in order to get him to where I wanted him to go. And yet still I didn't get credit for it, which by the way is super important to playing the game. You don't want to get the credit from the people that are in the game. You want to get the credit from the people that are out of the game. And if you go listen to their exit press, you'll see they gave me the credit for that stuff. And when I got to Ponderosa, I got my flowers from them. And it really was an incredible thing to pull up in the van. The van opens and everybody is standing there with a standing ovation. It's one of the coolest things that I think our cast did. And they told me, and they could have been lying because it's a game of Survivor, but they told me they would have voted for me to win the $1 million if I was sitting against anyone at the end. And that's how I felt in the game. And unfortunately, that's how the tribe, I think, started to feel. And that's why I went home.
I think if I would have been sitting at the final three, I think that potentially the edit looks different.
Right.
I had so many good conversations with Joe and Shaheen, and I literally felt like I was playing with Kyle from day one.
Yeah.
And they ended up showing it like maybe on episode 3. So I just like want people to know that the whole time I was playing an incredibly social game. Unfortunately, it didn't make the most sense in the edit, but I felt like I was playing really hard socially, which is ultimately what kept me in the game until the final 6. And in any other season of Survivor, the person who plays a good social game is like, wow, like look at how huge of a threat they are. And all of a sudden, because I'm the one doing it and I'm not making a big move against the majority alliance, like everyone has an issue. Like, no, that's not okay. Like, you look at some of the best players to ever play this game, and they played good social games. So I felt like if I was sitting at the end, regardless of what huge moves I made, I felt like my relationships and the social game I played would have given me an incredible chance.
I think it would have been nice to see how, I guess, a moment for me, because I mean, I was going to be like, ooh, I guess this is kind of related to me. That there were post-merge, I was being policed heavily by David, Mary, and Star. I think if people saw that, they would kind of understand a bit more context behind those eliminations. They would have more context on why I didn't have the social pull, because I couldn't actually be seen talking to other people other than Mitch. And so I think that would have added some nice color to the rest of the season and more context.
Oh yeah, there's a couple, but the depth of Shaheen and I's relationship. I mean, that really, maybe we can get into that vote out, but he, like that, it was. We were very deep. We were very, very close. Kyle and myself and Camilla, like we really were. And that, like, it was not fake. There were some truly deep seated kind of off camera moments that would always keep with me personally. I'll never share their business, but I wish that was not that it could be seen because it was so private, but I wish you could feel it a little more on camera, specifically with Camilla. Like, it would make more sense, I think, on why moves were harder for everybody, because we weren't just out there being robots. We had some genuine connection. So, but yeah.
I think, first off, one thing that I had been frustrated with throughout the season was that they were not showing my strategic side, right? We see we do not see any of the strategic conversations between me and Joe. You don't see any of the strategic conversations between me and Kyle, me and Shaheen. But then you never see the four of us talking as a group. And we always did. We very strategic. We often were talking about these things. They don't show any of that. And I was very frustrated with this for a long time. But now after watching the finale, I understand that they were allowing the audience to watch Final Tribal in the same way that the jury did. And that the audience was not aware of these layers to myself, to these, that I'm a three-dimensional character. They were not aware of this. And so me coming at Final Tribal and now putting this out in the open, they got to experience it like the jury did. And it was surprising and shocking. So that was surprisingly something I'm not upset that wasn't shown, but I am sad that they did not show my relationships with other people than Joe. Joe and I have this amazing relationship. That is huge. But there's a reason I went on every reward except the family letters. I didn't want family letters. I said, no, I don't want to go on that one. But I went on every single other reward, and it's because of these relationships I built in this game. That Kyle is legitimately family to me. I call him every day. He is like my brother. I went to his wedding right after we got back from Survivor, and that's the first wedding I've ever cried at because he's family to me. Camilla, we had no strategic relationship, but she brought me on 2 rewards because yes, it was good for her game for different reasons, but also we had this bond about food specifically that the two of us would name foods for hours and hours and hours, and no one else wanted to talk about food. They're like, no, it makes me nauseous. Camilla and I would talk for hours. We had this great connection. People like Mary, that they show me breaking up with Mary after we vote David out, but they don't show the relationship that we had, that we were very, very close as well. And so all these relationships that I'm like, my social game was my biggest weapon, and they didn't show it.
Well, here's another surprising thing is that I was made aware of today. I was talking to Eva, and she actually said it wasn't shown on the episode, but you actually went up to her and were willing to take her place in the fire making challenge. Again, putting yourself and your game at risk. Let us know what thinking went into that and how you came to that judgment. I mean, obviously, eventually she said, "Hey, no thanks," but what pushed you to that extreme that you were going to put yourself on the line in your game?
Yeah, Eva and I had an extremely close relationship. People talk about me and Camilla, and me and Camilla had a strategic relationship. Camilla and I talked maybe for 45 seconds to a minute a day in like spurts. But Eva and I had a very close personal relationship, if not maybe the closest to me out there personally.
Right.
Joe, maybe a close second. It could flip-flop between either of them. And so to see her in pain like that was incredibly difficult. At the same time, like even I had conversations about like everything about her is a superpower. And what she overcomes and what she deals with and how she goes about her life is one of the most impressive things that I've ever seen. And I learned from her as a sister every single day. But I knew I went up and she was never gonna let me do fire. The moment I told her that she was doing fire, it was hers. And I don't think people will quite fully grasp just how strong. Well, maybe no, people will grasp how strong she is, but she was never gonna let me do it, and I think she made the right decision too. We talked at length already about my relationship with Eva and Joe. I think that was a fun contrast to Camilla. I also had a very close relationship with, and we talked about David. I had a very close relationship with Mitch. My first day was very rough, and like I was way harder on myself than I think I should have been, but I was in a hole. And that first night, like Mitch and I just talked for hours. And then the next night we talked for hours and I learned about his life and like who he is as a person. And it really kind of like brought me back to life in the game. And Mitch and I's relationship throughout the remainder of the game was like very important, like emotionally and strategically. Such a good friend to me and such a good player too.